Welcome to part 5 of our Flutter Notes app series. In this video, we'll cover 2 important features to improve your app's functionality. How to edit and update notes using Provider, how to show a Scaffold Messenger message after deleting a note. Edit and update notes using Provider. In this part of the Flutter Notes app, we're diving into one of the most fundamental and powerful features, editing and updating notes using Provider for state management. When building apps where data can change based on user input, having a reactive and clean way to manage that state is not just helpful, it's essential. At its core, state management is all about managing the data your app uses, and ensuring that changes to that data are reflected in the UI efficiently. In our Notes app, each note contains user-generated content. If a user edits a note, the app needs to not only capture the change but also update the interface and make sure the change persists in the underlying data. That's where Provider comes in. The Provider package acts like a bridge between your UI and your data. It allows widgets to listen for changes in data and update themselves automatically when those changes occur. This is known as reactive programming. It makes your app feel responsive, consistent, and intuitive, because the interface always shows the most up-to-date version of the data without you having to manually refresh or rebuild things. Let's talk about the actual editing process from a user journey point of view. The user taps on a note to open it. This note is fetched from a central data source, something like a list of note objects that live in memory, inside a class that extends Change Notifier. When the note opens, its data is shown in editable text fields. The user makes changes, perhaps adjusts the title, corrects a typo, or adds new information. When they press the Save button, the app needs to take that new input, update the correct note in the list, and notify all listening widgets that this note has been changed. In a well-structured Flutter app using Provider, all of this is done in an organized and clean way. The editing screen doesn't directly manipulate the data. Instead, it calls a method in the Provider-backed class, something like update note, and passes the updated values. That method finds the note in the list, updates its values, and then calls notify listeners. That's the magic button. It ensures that any widgets watching this data source get rebuilt automatically with the new data. This makes the user interface consistent, responsive, and bug-free. What's powerful here is the separation of concerns. The UI doesn't care how the data is stored or updated, it just knows that if the data changes, it will be rebuilt. Likewise, the logic layer doesn't know how the UI looks, it just exposes methods to update and fetch the data. This makes your code cleaner, more testable, and easier to maintain as the app grows. Another huge benefit of using Provider for this is that it scales. Whether you have 10 notes or 10,000, the Provider model ensures that only the widgets that need to rebuild actually do so. This keeps your app fast and responsive, even with a large dataset. This is especially important for apps that are data-heavy or rely on real-time updates. The editing and updating workflow is one of those experiences that users take for granted, until it doesn't work smoothly. Using Provider ensures that this part of the app is robust, consistent, and scalable. It helps create an app that users can trust, because their changes are captured, saved, and reflected immediately. Show a Scaffold Messenger message after deleting notes. User feedback is a core part of app usability, and in this part of the Flutter Notes app, we're exploring how to give clear and timely feedback after deleting a note using Scaffold Messenger. When a user performs a destructive action like deleting something, they should immediately receive a confirmation. Not only does this build confidence in the app, but it also reassures them that their action has been processed. In Flutter, Scaffold Messenger is the go-to tool for this. Think of it as a messaging layer that sits on top of your app's UI. It allows you to show temporary notifications, like snackbars, to inform users about what just happened, without interrupting their workflow or requiring a new screen. Before Scaffold Messenger, we had to use Scaffold of context. Show snackbar, which was often tied to the nearest Scaffold widget. This method had limitations. For example, if the user had already navigated away, or if the context wasn't available due to widget rebuilding, the snackbar would fail to show. This created inconsistencies and bugs in many apps. Scaffold Messenger solves that. It decouples the messaging system from a specific scaffold and makes it globally accessible. That means you can show a snackbar from anywhere in your app, even after navigation or screen transitions, without worrying about context issues. In the context of your Notes app, imagine the user deletes a note. As soon as that happens, you want to display a small message at the bottom of the screen that says something like, "Note deleted." You might also include an undo button so the user can reverse the action. This kind of feedback is clear, immediate, and user-friendly. Scaffold Messenger also allows for more control and customization of the messages. You can adjust the duration, appearance, and even behavior. For example, you might want the snack bar to stay visible for a few seconds, or disappear if the user interacts with the app again. You can also stack messages or dismiss them programmatically, giving you full control over the user experience. One of the best things about using Scaffold Messenger is that it creates a more professional feel to your app. It shows that you care about user experience and want to keep them informed. This kind of attention to detail separates good apps from great ones. Feedback mechanisms are often overlooked, but they play a huge role in user satisfaction. They create a dialogue between the app and the user. Instead of just performing silent operations, the app becomes communicative. It confirms, informs, and sometimes even invites users to take follow-up actions. Scaffold Messenger makes implementing this kind of dialogue smooth and flexible. Grid View.Builder. The Grid View.Builder widget in Flutter is one of the most efficient and adaptable tools for creating structured, scrollable grids of content. It's particularly useful in scenarios like your Notes app, where you're displaying a collection of similar items, notes, in this case, in a way that feels organized, easy to scan, and visually engaging. Let's start with the core purpose of Grid View.Builder. It's designed to generate items on demand, meaning that instead of building every single widget at once, it builds only the ones currently visible on the screen. This approach is called lazy loading, and it's an essential performance optimization, especially when you're working with large datasets or want smooth scrolling on low-end devices. This is one of the biggest benefits over using Grid View with static children, which renders all items up front regardless of visibility. Now think about your Notes app from the user's perspective. The app might store dozens or even hundreds of notes. Displaying these notes in a vertical list can be overwhelming and space-consuming, especially on larger devices like tablets or landscape mode phones. A grid layout gives you a way to use space more efficiently, allowing multiple notes to appear side by side. This improves both readability and user engagement, as it reduces the amount of scrolling required. With Grid View.Builder, you gain total control over how many items are shown across the screen. This is done through parameters like Grid Delegate, which allows you to set the number of columns, the aspect ratio of the items, and the spacing between them. In your app, this means you could, for example, show 2 notes side by side on a phone but expand to 4 or more on a tablet, all with the same codebase. Another important aspect of this widget is its responsiveness. Users expect apps to look and feel natural regardless of screen size, orientation, or platform. Grid View.Builder allows you to dynamically adjust layouts to match the context, so whether your user is on a compact phone screen or a large foldable, the notes layout always feels just right. From a UX standpoint, grids are visually cleaner when dealing with uniform content like cards. Each note can be displayed inside a card-like widget or container, styled with rounded corners, shadows, and some padding to separate it from other notes. This makes the UI look clean, modern, and touch-friendly, qualities that significantly enhance usability. Another subtle but powerful advantage of Grid View.Builder is scroll performance. Since it only renders visible items, the app feels smoother and more responsive, even as the number of notes grows. This is important because Flutter apps are often judged by how they feel, not just how they look. If the interface stutters or lags, users notice, and it reflects poorly on the quality of the app. When combined with animations, gesture interactions, or contextual features like long press actions, the Grid View Builder can become a central part of your app's interactivity. For example, tapping on a note could open the editing screen, long pressing could activate a delete option, and swiping could reveal more actions. The grid layout is not just a passive way to display data, it becomes a canvas for rich user interaction. Finally, Grid View.Builder is incredibly flexible when it comes to theming and responsiveness. You can use it to build horizontal grids, nested grids, staggered grids, or even grids with dynamic heights and widths. That means this widget doesn't lock you into a certain look or feel, it empowers you to build interfaces that match your app's personality and purpose. Gesture Detector. Interactivity is a cornerstone of mobile app development, and in Flutter, one of the most fundamental tools for enabling interactivity is the Gesture Detector widget. At its essence, Gesture Detector allows you to turn any widget into something that reacts to touch, whether that's a tap, a swipe, a long press, or a drag. Let's begin by understanding why this matters in your Notes app. Imagine a grid of note cards displayed on the screen. Each note isn't just visual information, it's an actionable item. The user might want to tap a note to open and edit it, long press to delete it, or even swipe it for additional options like archiving or sharing. None of it is possible unless your app knows how to detect and respond to those user gestures. This is where Gesture Detector shines. Gesture Detector acts like an invisible wrapper around any widget. It listens for gestures and provides callbacks for you to define the behavior. You can use on tap to trigger navigation, on long press to show a context menu, on double tap to like or star a note, and even on pan update for custom swipe gestures. This level of control means that any part of your UI can become interactive, with minimal overhead. It's important to note that Gesture Detector itself doesn't provide any visual feedback. This is by design. It's meant to be a logic handler, not a visual widget. That means you're free to apply any design or decoration you want to the underlying widget. If you want visual feedback like ripple effects or highlights,